What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This week we got UFC Kansas City, Carlos Prates versus Ian Garry replacing Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. Decent card overall, and we're going to go ahead and get right into the full card predictions. Our first fight on the card, we got Roberto Romero versus Timmy Kwamba. I'm going to take Roberto Romero to win this one by decision. Looked solid in his UFC debut versus David Onama, who I don't rate super highly, but he did have some success. He showed a level of aggression that I do like to see. And Timmy Kwamba, in his two UFC fights, lost both of them, looked terrible in both of them, lost to Balaji Oki, and also lost to Lucas Almeida last time out. So he really just doesn't show the ability to adjust in the middle of his fights. He really just doesn't have a lot of aggression. Technical fighter, but like I said, I just really don't think he's UFC level. I don't think Roberto Romero necessarily is either, but I do think that Roberto Romero, a little grittier, a little more aggressive. I think he can get the job done by decision. Our next fight on the card, we have Cameron Saaiman versus Malcolm Wellmaker. Cameron Saaiman coming back into this one after his brutal knockout loss to Peyton Talbot. Before that, got pretty much dominated by Christian Rodriguez, and he's coming into this fight on a 2-fight loss streak. Both very, very one-sided fights. Malcolm Wellmaker, on the other hand, 8-0, coming in off the Contender Series where he did fight a high-level opponent. Got a beautiful knockout, pull, counter, right hand. He's got nasty, nasty power in his hands. He is very athletic as well. He's strong, he's fast, and he's been working on his grappling for sure. He's had 5-round fights on the regional scene, which shows that he probably does have solid cardio. And, Cameron Saaiman, that's kind of his main thing. He's got decent pressure. He's got good cardio. He's well-rounded, kind of like a small Dricus du Plessis. I know a lot of people make that comparison, but the thing about Dricus du Plessis is he's an absolute beast. He weighs like 220 in the fucking cage, super fucking strong, hits hard as hell, and that kind of makes up for the lack of technique at times. And he's also just incredibly gritty. Cameron Saaiman, yeah, he's gritty, and he kind of has the Marauder style, but he's nowhere near as durable, he's nowhere near as strong, and he just doesn't have the athleticism for that style to work, especially in the 135-pound division. I think that Cameron Saaiman, we saw it in his last fight, leaves himself open for counters quite often. I think Malcolm Wellmaker is going to absolutely put his head through the freaking fence with a mean right hand in round one. I think Malcolm Wellmaker sleeps him. Yeah, I'm pretty high on Malcolm Wellmaker. He was on my prospects to watch video from the Contender Series this year. I think he gets the job done in emphatic fashion over Cameron Saaiman. Cameron Saaiman, he's too small, too weak for the 135-pound division. He needs to move down to 125 if he can make that cut. Our next fight on the card, we got Damon Blackshear versus Ala Tanghali. Ala Tanghali, Marauder, aggressive striker, well-rounded fighter, but just doesn't really stand out anywhere. Coming in off a win over Clayton Rodriguez, I believe it was, but that was like almost 2 years ago at this point. Damon Blackshear, he's been active. Yeah, he had that knockout loss to Montel Jackson, but Montel Jackson is a ranked fighter in this division, very high-level guy. I don't really hate that. Just kind of got caught with the lucky punch, really. It was 2 seconds into the fight, so what can you really take from that? I don't really look into that too deeply. I think that Damon Blackshear is a very, very high-level fighter. I think his grappling is standout. And, in his last fight, had a little bit of adversity versus a crafty vet in Cody Gibson. But, he eventually got the better of the grappling sequences, was able to get a crafty submission, against, I believe it was Cody Stamen the fight before that. He's gone 3 rounds with Yusuf Zalal. I believe they drew that fight. So, he's been doing solid against decent levels of competition. His grappling, like I said, does stand out. Very, very good with his jiu-jitsu. Always looks for a submission. He's dangerous on the ground. Does have good control as well. I think he's going to be able to take the path of least resistance here against Ala Tanghali, get the job done via submission. I do think that Damon Blackshear, really, unless he runs into somebody that's just a power puncher with nasty takedown defense like Montel Jackson, yeah, he's going to win these fights most of the time. So, yeah, give me Damon Jackson via submission in round one. I'm picking 2 round 1 finishes back-to-back here. A KO for Wellmaker and a submission for Blackshear. Our next fight on the card, we have Chris Gutierrez versus John Castaneda. I don't think John Castaneda is any good, realistically. I mean, yeah, he's had some wins in the UFC. You can't remember them because they just really didn't stand out that much. And what I remember most about John Castaneda is I was at this fight live, him versus Daniel Marcos. Daniel Marcos beat the absolute piss and shit out of John Castaneda, schooled him pillar to post. And I really don't think that Daniel Marcos is very good whatsoever. I'm going to be picking Montel Jackson to beat his ass. Yeah, I just don't think Daniel Marcos is all that good, and Daniel Marcos schooled John Castaneda, and he does have a similar style to a Chris Gutierrez, good kickboxing on the outside. He commits to his shots a little bit better than Chris Gutierrez, who is kind of a pitter-pat merchant, but Chris Gutierrez, he has good output, good cardio, trains out of Factory X Muay Thai. He surrounds himself with good guys, high-level guys, and he's been in there with solid levels of competition. 5 rounds with Song Yadong, got the TKO win versus Frankie Edgar a few years ago, which kind of put him onto the scene. He's a decent fighter. He's been in there, done that, and he also had a really good performance last time out against a short notice opponent, but he got the job done like he was supposed to. I think Chris Gutierrez, he's going to have good takedown defense for this fight, and on the feet, I think he's just going to have a lot more volume than a John Castaneda who's just not accurate, doesn't know how to impose his will with the striking. Give me Chris Gutierrez to win by decision. Our next fight on the card, we got Evan Elder versus Gage Young. I mean, look, Gage Young, never heard of the guy. He's stepping in for the Afghan dude that SA'd a minor. So hopefully that Afghan guy gets beat to death in a prison somewhere and dies in a bloody pool. But, yeah, look, Gage Young, he's taking this on like a week's notice. Evan Elder, solid level of competition here in the UFC. He's just a well-rounded guy in the 155-pound division. I'll take Evan Elder to get the job done because he's kind of in a position to where he should, realistically. I mean, you got to imagine Gage Young, even if he's in shape, he's not specifically ready for this date, for this event. I think Evan Elder, he's going to be in better shape, just going to be a little more ready. These guys literally look like spitting images of each other. I mean, both 9-2 out of America. They got the most basic white guy name ever. But yeah, Evan Elder, I think, gets the job done. UFC level fighter, been inactive, but I think his skill level is good enough to win this one. Next fight on the card, and I'll pick him to win by decision. Next fight on the card, we got Matt Schnell versus Jimmy Flick. Jimmy Flick lost to a guy that I always knew was very underrated. He got cut by the UFC, Nate Maness. He lost to Nate Maness last time out, but Nate Maness, he's a really good striker, has good takedown defense for the most part, and didn't get knocked out, was gritty in there. In the fight before that, he was fighting a black Canadian guy in Canada, can't remember the guy's name, but Jimmy Flick did win that fight by a submission, looked solid in that fight. He's a well-rounded fighter for the most part, but he's just not super high level. He's not great anywhere except for the submissions, and he's just a little bit here and there. Every now and then he'll get a crazy submission and look really good, and then he'll have a fight where he literally doesn't land a single strike and is not able to do anything. So it's a difficult one to pick here because Matt Schnell has the worst chin in possibly UFC history. I mean, even pillow punchers, if they touch this guy, he's going down. I mean, I believe Cody Durden knocked him down, Steve Erceg knocked him down, Mateus Nicolau knocked him down. If these types of fighters are knocking you down, that is a very, very big indication that your chin is just not where it needs to be competing. And it's hard because Matt Schnell is actually a very talented fighter. He's got good technical ability. He's got good transitions on the ground. He has good fight IQ, and he's fast and technical on the feet, but just simply cannot take a shot. But Jimmy Flick, I don't know if he really is going to be able to crack the chin of Matt Schnell. That's going to be a challenge for him just because his striking really is not up to par. I mean, he's aggressive and he does try on the feet at least, but I don't think he's going to be technical enough to really connect on Matt Schnell a lot. But then again, I believe it was Cody Durden that, stepped in and fought Matt Schnell and was able to drop him and then sub him. Maybe Jimmy Flick could do something like that, but I'm going to lean on the side of caution. I'm going to take Matt Schnell by decision. I don't think that he really wanted to retire after his last fight. Maybe he's just kind of doing this to get a win before he finally does retire. And I think that's a good amount of motivation. Jimmy Flick seems like the type of guy that even if he doesn't get his win money, he's still going to be happy with the check. So, yeah, give me Matt Schnell, decision win. Next fight on the card, Ikram Aliskerov versus Andre Muniz. Difficult one to call here because Ikram Aliskerov, isn't super proven in the UFC. But Andre Muniz, look, he's super one-dimensional. Yeah, he's got a long reach and he can kind of touch you with the jab, but he's not putting you in any danger on the feet whatsoever. Not super well-rounded. And if you can get on the inside and land like some really quick combinations, that'll definitely give him issues because he's, a long-range grappler. Last time out had a decent performance against Jung Young Park. That was a close fight, but his grappling looked really good in that one. Really, what this comes down to is can he smudge Ikram Aliskerov against the fence, because Ikram, he's got nasty striking, really good ability to just put somebody away. He did lose to Robert Whittaker last time out, and he lost to Chimaev on the regional scene, I believe, in Brave before the UFC. 15-2, only losses to top 5 guys in the middleweight division. I don't hate that whatsoever. And realistically, Andre Muniz, he got finished by Paul Craig on the ground via ground and pound. These Russian guys are so good at just not even entertaining the jiu-jitsu. They're not even entertaining these sequences on the ground where something bad could happen, where they could end up on their backs. If it is on the fence, Ikram, I have confidence that he's at least going to be able to stay upright. I don't think he's going to get toppled over and put on his back. Give me Ikram Aliskerov by round 2 TKO. I think he's much better on the feet. Hits much, much harder. We see, his knockouts versus, you remember the Warley Alves knockout. That was a pretty nasty one in Abu Dhabi. Give me Ikram Aliskerov. I know he's coming in off a bad loss, but the level of competition that he's ever lost to Chimaev or Whittaker, I don't hate that whatsoever. Both by knockout, which is a concern, but, Andre Muniz just doesn't have knockout power compared to those guys. And Khamzat Chimaev as well was struggling to take down Ikram Aliskerov at times. If Chimaev even has to try, I don't think that Muniz is going to be able to do it at all. So give me Ikram Aliskerov via round 2 TKO. I think his striking is much better. He hits harder. He's got the Dagestan style where he won't entertain the jiu-jitsu as much, won't entertain the grappling as much if it's not for his benefit. And yeah, I think he's going to be able to get the job done. Round 2 TKO. Very, very similar to how Paul Craig TKO'd Andre Muniz on the ground, but I think that Ikram's going to knock him down before he gets to that type of position to finish the fight. So yeah, Ikram round 2 TKO. Next fight on the card, we got Randy the Rude Boy Brown versus Nicholas Dalby. Good fight here, and it's trickier to predict than you may think, but I am going to have to take Randy Brown, and I'm actually going to take him to win by round 1 TKO. Look, he was on a really good win streak before his last fight versus Brian Battle, where it was a very, very, very close fight. I can see both sides, but I honestly had money on Brian Battle there, and I thought that Randy Brown was about to get that decision, and I honestly think he did enough work to earn that decision. But then again, very close fight, like razor's edge type of fight, 50-50. But look, he looked great in that fight. His boxing was on point, like always. He's got such fast hands, and he's really like sitting down on his shots and really trying to finish fights now. Back in the day, kind of a pitter-pat guy, but now really is putting some heat on these shots. He's improving with his power. I think his strength and conditioning is getting better, leading to that as well. You look at the TKO win he had versus Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu. That's a great win. And the performance versus Brian Battle looked good in that one. He's been in there with really high-level guys, Chaos Williams, Michael Pereira. He's been in there with a lot of good fighters in the 170-pound division. Just take a look at Randy Brown's resume. His win streak that he was on was pretty good. Alizeu Zaleski on UFC 304, forgot about that one. Looked good in round 1 and 3 of that fight. Got taken down and controlled in the second round, but looked good in that fight. And, his last loss was to Jack Della Maddalena, Vicente Luque, lost to Bilal Muhammad. He's beaten guys like, Chaos Williams, Trinaldo, Wellington Turman, Salikov, Alex the Cowboy Oliveira, Jared Gooden, Brian Barberena. He's been there, done that, and he's only ever lost to really high levels of competition. Nicholas Dalby, he's been around for a long time, fought in the UFC, got cut, and then came back. old head, but he did have that really good win versus, I believe it was Gabriel Bonfim in Brazil, where he broke him with cardio and pressure. He's got good striking skills, and he's got good, cardio and pressure. Like I said, never stops fighting for himself, and had a really, really close fight with Rinat Fakhretdinov as well not too long ago. But, did have to pull out of his fight versus Dos Santos, which was supposed to be a few months ago. It was him that pulled out. So maybe he's suffering with an injury. 40-year-old fighter getting on the older side. I think that Randy Brown's going to be just too quick to the punch here. I think he's going to get a round 1 TKO. And the reason I think that is because Nicholas Dalby did get dropped pretty badly by Rinat Fakhretdinov with a straight right hand. And Rinat has power, but I think that if Rinat is able to tag you like that, I think Randy Brown is just going to be so quick, so accurate. I think he's going to be able to find something sharp like he did versus Muslim Salikov. So I'm going to take Randy Brown to win this one. Early KO, first round and a half TKO for Randy Brown. And yeah, I think he's just going to snipe him with a long-rangey 2 down the pipe, just like the exact same thing he did versus Muslim Salikov. Dalby, if he's able to kind of get into the clinch and wear on Randy Brown like Brian Battle did, possibility he could get the job done. But, I think this is going to be the performance where he finally kind of starts to look old. The fucking, huffing and puffing breathing technique ain't going to be working like it used to. Give me Randy Brown to get the job done. TKO. Michel Pereira versus Abu Magomedov. Look, Abu's good. He won by submission last time out versus Bruno Ferreira. Got that nasty front kick TKO versus Dustin Stoltzfus, I believe it was, in his UFC debut. And had a really good first round versus Sean Strickland before he gassed out. That really was like an adrenaline dump. A lot less in terms of his skill set. You could see that he was just dead tired out there. But he also lost to Caio Borralho as well. I forgot about that fight for a second. Did lose to Caio Borralho, but high level of competition. Got out grappled there. Abu, he's well-rounded. He's got good grappling. He's got good, striking on the feet, good kicking as well. Landed some head kicks against Sean Strickland. Was having some success at range versus Bruno Ferreira before he went for the takedowns. But, look, Michel Pereira, he's been very, very impressive recently, especially since he's gone up to 185. Knocked out Andre Petroski, stained Mikhail Olasejczak, and who else was it that he fought last time where he just absolutely put him on a stretcher? Ihor Potieria? Yeah. Ever since he's moved up to 185, he's just been putting in work. I mean, especially with the Olasejczak and the Petroski TKOs. Both of those look really good. Both of those guys coming in off wins now. Those wins aging well. And you look at his last fight versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who I think is the 3rd best fighter in the division behind Hamzat Andrikas. Look, I'm not going to take much from him for losing that fight. It's a nightmare matchup. Fluffy is like impossible to finish, super durable, nasty, nasty chain wrestling, never gets tired, excellent submissions, dog tough, melting forward pressure. That's like a power puncher, knockout artist, worst nightmare of a fighter to go against. And that's what Michel Pereira went against. And look, he got completely melted and gassed out in that fight. I predicted it perfectly to a T, but he did land some nasty, nasty shots on Anthony Hernandez. And those shots, I think, put away Abu Magomedov here. I really do. I think that Michel Pereira, he's just too quick, too strong, too powerful early to not get the round 1 TKO. If it's against anybody except for Fluffy, that's outside of the rankings, I really do think that Michel Pereira is not going to have a hard time knocking them out. And he has gone to a decision in the past. I'm pretty sure he fought Chaos Williams, went to a decision with Nico Price. Look, he's a decent fighter. Definitely has some issues with the cardio department, but his striking and his finishing potential is off the charts. He's very, very athletic. I mean, you see this dude doing backflips and shit in the cage. As long as he doesn't gas himself out, he should be able to get around 1 or 2 TKO here. Maybe even get a decision off of damage. I don't think that Abu's going to have a lot of success with the grappling, early especially. I think that Pereira is going to have learned from his last fight. And he's not Fluffy, so I don't think he's going to be able to melt him and really expose the cardio. And the striking is good. It's technical, but it's not at the same level in terms of danger as Michel Pereira. Give me Michel Pereira, round 1 knockout. Our next fight on the card, we have Giga Chikadze versus David Onama. David Onama coming in off a win versus Roberto Romero. had a nice win. Before that, I believe it was against Jonathan Pierce. Good grappler there. David Onama got the job done. He's an athletic fighter, does have power in his hands, trains out of Factory X Muay Thai predominantly, I believe. So, he's getting good coaching, good training partners. Giga Chikadze, we know the deal with him. Very slick striker, great kicking, wins over Edson Barboza. I believe he beat, was it Jeremiah Wells back in the day as well? So, we know that Giga Chikadze, he has very good striking. He's good at outstriking strikers. But, when you really mix it up against him like Calvin Kattar, like Arnold Allen did, you can give him some trouble for sure. David Onama, though, I just don't think he's going to be able to really, push Giga against the fence, make him struggle like an Arnold Allen did, like a Giga Chikadze did. I just don't really think he's on that level. And he also has bad durability issues. We see him getting dropped often in his fights. And look, he's just not standing out on the feet enough for me to think he's going to be able to beat Giga because, yeah, he was able to defensively out-grapple Jonathan Pierce. But I just don't think he's going to be going for offensive takedowns here all that much. I think Giga, with the Glory kickboxing background, with a much higher level experience in terms of long striking fights and exchanges, I think Giga's going to really be in a comfortable fight here. I think Giga probably drops him, if not finishes him, with a head kick, with a clean, straight shot down the middle. I like Giga here in this spot. I think this is a favorable matchup for him. And also, I just don't see David Onama ragdolling Giga, constantly getting him down. And if this is going to be on the feet for 3 rounds, Giga Chikadze, he rarely gets finished. I mean, he got beat the fuck up by Calvin Kattar, still made it to the final bell there. I think that Giga Chikadze is more durable than David Onama, and I think Giga is going to be able to play it smart. This is a much lower level of competition than he's used to. I think he's going to be able to play it smart, outstrike him at range, get a knockdown with a head kick, get a knockdown or 2 in this fight, and then win a comfortable decision. So give me Giga Chikadze by a 30-26 masterclass bounce back. Yeah, I think Giga gets it done here. I'm pretty confident in that. Our next fight on the card, Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Ming Yang Zhang. Yeah, I mean, what are we doing here? Ming Yang Zhang's going to fucking kill him in the first 2 minutes of the fight. Like, Anthony Smith literally doesn't have a fucking shot in hell. He's done. He's lost all of his fucking fights recently, except for the Petrino, Fluke, Gilly. Got curled up into a ball versus Delidze, curled up into a ball versus Dominic Reyes, curled up into a ball versus fucking Khalil Roundtree. I mean, how many times are we going to have to see this dude get the fucking piss beaten out of him? Glover Teixeira, John Jones back in the day, championship level fighters, but they put a fucking beating on him, dude. Knocked his teeth out, embarrassing him, fucking shoving his head through the fence. Anthony Smith, look, I'm just very concerned for this dude. Like, there's some real problems here. Why not just retire? I mean, look, I know you might need the money. I know you enjoy the process of fighting, but like, dude, why are you signing a contract to fight Ming Yang Zhang where there's a 100% certainty you're getting your fucking head chopped off? Why even sign that fight? Like, this dude definitely has some type of thing for just getting the shit beaten out of him, which is just odd. But yeah, look, Zhang, he's gonna fucking stain him. We've seen him knock out Ribeiro. We saw him knock out Tokos on the Peter Yan card. And I've been saying Zhang's a really good fighter. I had money on him last time out in that fight. And yeah, he's impressed me. Marauder, young fighter as well, fast, just mean shots in tight. And he's also pretty accurate. I mean, you saw that combo that he hit Ribeiro with, who's also on a win streak right now. That win's aging well. I think Zhang Minyang's just going to absolutely fucking fold Anthony Smith worse than Khalil Roundtree. I think Zhang hits harder than Khalil Roundtree. Yeah, Zhang is going to decimate, destroy, embarrass, and retire Anthony Smith in the most brutal way possible. And it's going to be pretty sad. Like, I really think this is going to be an ugly one. Like, I don't think it's just going to be Anthony Smith curled up in a ball. I think Anthony Smith is going to try to prove a point. And he's going to run into something disgusting, I'm telling you. He's so slow. He's so uncoordinated. He has no reaction time left. He literally looks like he's half drunk when he's out there fighting. He's going to throw a really weak jab. And Ming Yang Zhang is going to counter that jab with the meanest hook or inside upward elbow, downward elbow to the fucking chin that you've ever seen in your entire life, and he's gonna fucking fold him. Like, this is gonna be Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell type shit right here. Ming Yang Zhang legitimately put your 401k on him to win. No chance he loses. Ian Machado Garry versus my boy Carlos Prates. Look, I've been on the Carlos Prates train ever since he got into the UFC. I had money on him in every single fight that he's ever had in the UFC banner. Dana White Contender Series versus Mitch Ramirez, UFC debut versus Trevin Giles. I was at his second UFC fight in person versus Charles Radke. Had money on him there, minus 190. Got the job done with a beautiful step-in knee to the solar plexus. Then he really got found out. The hype really started to get big after he folded the Leech and absolutely fucking pieced him up there on the Izzy card in Australia, UFC 305, showcase performance. That's when everybody really found out about him. And then after that, just folded Neil Magny and put him on a stretcher after defending multiple takedowns. He's been on an absolute heater, knocking out everybody. And we know the deal with Carlos Prates. I really do think that he has some of the best Muay Thai in all of MMA. He uses that style very well. You know, good leg kicks, good knees up the middle, nasty knees. He's got just a piston of a backhand. That left hand is just one of those shots that you cannot take. He's got that ungodly, ability where you can just fold everyone you touch without even putting all of your effort into a shot. He's kind of like Pereira, dude, at 170. I mean, it really is the case with that. Pereira, he's not even turning his fucking hips all the way over on some of these short little shots that he's landing, and he's just folding motherfuckers. I mean, Carlos Prates, he landed one left-handed against Charles Radke, and Charles Radke looked like a fucking deer in the headlights, just waiting for the fight to finish. He was lucky that Carlos Prates went to the body there in that fight. I mean, the Leech, dude, every single time he even touched the Leech, he would do a 360 and fall on the fucking floor. Carlos Prates, didn't even hit Neil Magny very clean when he knocked him out. It was like a grazing pinky punch that hit him in the side of the head. Carlos Prates literally had Neil Magny laying flat on the floor twice in that fight with two shots that didn't even land clean. And look, Ian Machado Garry has some of the weakest shots in his hands at all of 170. He was able to knock out a couple guys when he first got into the UFC. He had the head kick versus D-Rod. TKO didn't really slump him out there. He had that nice little pull counter in his UFC debut. Looked good there, but let's just look at his most recent fights. Neil Magny, Jeff Neal, and Shavkat Rakhmonov. I just don't see a fighter that's going to be able to beat Carlos Prates here. And actually, I think that this is one of the only fights in the rankings that Carlos Prates can actually win. So the UFC made a really smart decision here because, look, Carlos Prates loses to Sean Brady. He loses to Bilal Muhammad, loses to Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's going to lose to these really good grapplers. And I think that JDM would even give him real issues with the boxing. But Ian Garry's style really does leave a lot of openings for Carlos Prates to exploit. What does Ian Garry do well? He's got good leg kicks. He's got good, kickboxing at range. And he's started to implement some decent jiu-jitsu, some good back takes. But, he's getting most of these grappling positions from the clinch anyway after, the grappling exchange starts against the fence. Carlos Prates showed in his last fight that he was doing very, very, very well at stopping those grappling exchanges. I know it's Neil Magny, but Neil Magny is good at grappling against the fence. I mean, the dude has the most wins in UFC welterweight history. It's got to count for something to beat him, especially when you're defending takedowns along the fence. Carlos Prates also, we know the Muay Thai background. We know he's nasty in the clinch. He's got good knees and elbows that he can use in the clinch against Ian Garry. And I just don't think Ian Garry's going to be able to do his zesty little fucking lean on Carlos Prates and have success with it. I think Carlos is going to counter him. I think he's going to knee him in the body when they're in the clinch. And I just don't think the takedown attempts are going to be successful for Ian Garry. And I just don't see him fucking, shooting a clean single leg and tipping Carlos Prates over, running the pipe. I just don't see that. I see a striking fight between two technical fighters where, If it gets into the clinch, it's just going to stall out and they're going to break and kickbox again. Ian Garry, he's got pitter-pat kicks, kicking the arms, kicking the hands, kicking the freaking leg, the tapping oblique kicks that he was landing against Shavkat. He's got a good jab and he's quick and technical, but he's just not dangerous. Unless he head kicks you, what do you really have to worry about? A couple of good straight shots, a stomp to the knee, and a couple of, round kicks to the leg. That's really it. No power in his hands whatsoever. And also, I think that the pressure and the footwork of Carlos Prates is actually going to give Ian Garry some real issues. We've seen Ian Garry get tagged on the chin big on multiple occasions. You look at his fight versus Song Kenan. I know we bring this up all the time, and it's not just a telltale sign that he's going to get knocked out. I mean, it's just simply not. But you cannot look at Song Kenan, a low-level fighter, landing a looping left hand on the chin of Ian Garry and think that Carlos Prates won't be able to at least land it, even if he doesn't KO him. He got dropped by a left hand with Song Kenan. Carlos Prates has like the nastiest left hand in the division. He was getting his head spun the fuck back versus Shavkat and MVP. Just the straight shot down the pipe really does give him issues because look, he's a taller fighter. He's used to having that reach advantage where he can just slide out of the way with his footwork or just slightly pull back and counter. I mean, look, I'm a taller fighter myself. You get used to that eventually, and sometimes those just naked rear hand shots straight down the middle, you almost don't even see them coming because you don't have time to react to it and use your distance. That happens to Ian Garry often. Song Kenan, MVP, Shavkat Rakhmonov all landed flush strikes on the chin. And Carlos Prates is a better striker than all of them, except for maybe MVP. MVP is like an enigma. But Carlos Prates, he's more accurate, more powerful, and a better striker than Shavkat, than Song Kenan. He's going to have success. He's going to land big. Can Ian Garry eat the shots and survive? I don't think so. I mean, look, Carlos Prates, yeah, he smokes. Yeah, he drinks. Maybe he doesn't live the most professional lifestyle, which is cool and all, but like when I'm picking a fighter to win, especially if I'm going to be putting money on them, I don't really love to see that. I like a disciplined fighter that is just never going to do anything wrong ever. Don't eat unhealthy, don't drink, don't smoke, don't stay out late partying. You think of a Evloev, a Magomed Ankalaev, those types of guys, they're just the most disciplined humans on the planet. Carlos Prates, not very disciplined. I think the cardio eventually is going to be an issue against a heavy pressure grappler. But look, Ian Garry just isn't a heavy pressure grappler. Yeah, he can grapple, but Carlos Prates can too. He's a BJJ black belt. And look, Carlos Prates, his educated pressure is very, very good. His cage control is good. He cuts good angles to land the left hand. He pressures you into the fence very well. I think that Ian Garry, he's so used to using his evasive footwork that he's eventually going to back himself into a wedge in the fence where Carlos is going to be able to unload with some strikes. I think Ian Garry, if Carlos starts throwing a lot of body kicks, Ian Garry can definitely catch a body kick, sweep him, and get in top position that way. That's something I could definitely see now that I'm really trying to envision this fight. But what I envision is Ian Garry, with his very short reach and his, P head, I see him trying to land an exchange with Carlos in close, and I think that Carlos is going to tag him up with the hands. I mean, the power differential is just incredible, and they're both accurate. So they're both going to be landing. Carlos Prates is going to be the one dealing all the damage. And when they're going tit for tat at range, like Carlos Prates just really isn't going to have any trouble with that. He has so many Muay Thai and kickboxing fights. He has hundreds of them. So he's not going to be in any type of uncomfortable situation striking at range with Ian Garry. Ian Garry, he has really good volume at range, but Carlos Prates is going to be able to match him with that. And whenever they crash, whenever they exchange, if it ever gets dirty, 100% Carlos Prates is going to be getting the better of that. And he's going to be dealing way more damage. He actually, in my opinion, has a better strike selection, really, really nasty left hand. We saw him implementing some really good hooks against the fence versus the leech. He's got good kicks. You saw that in, his first couple of fights, especially in the Mitch Ramirez fight. Charles Radke fight, landed some really good leg kicks in those fights. And look, he's like a young Anderson Silva. it's going to take a Sean Brady. It's going to take a Bilal Muhammad to be able to beat him. I'm telling you, Ian Garry just doesn't have the grappling that it's going to take. Carlos Prates, he's going to stuff the takedowns like he did against Neil Magny, and when they're on the feet, Carlos is going to light him up like a Christmas tree. Ian Garry is not going to be able to take the shots. He's vegan. And look, as I was saying, I kind of got off topic because I'm fucking ADHD, and this is a really interesting fight, but Carlos Prates, yes, he may not be the most disciplined fighter ever, but Ian Machado Garry, this is kind of like a Jamal Hill versus Yuri Prochazka situation. Yeah, there are some non-desirable qualities on the side of the fighter you're going to be picking, but I just don't think that Ian Machado Garry has the character, is the type of individual that's mentally strong enough that he's just not a dog. I just don't see a dog in him. I don't think that he really has the character to be able to compete with a guy like Carlos Prates, who's literally a fucking marauder. I think Ian Garry is delusional. I don't think he's confident. I think he's delusional, which is one of the best bases for MMA. You have to be delusional. You have to be stupid enough to go in there and think that you're going to do well against Shavkat Rakhmonov on short notice. You have to be delusional to think that you're going to do well against Carlos Prates on short notice. It's a good thing, but I think that the type of guy that is getting, manipulated and controlled by a fucking succubus like his wife, and, being a CUCK, allowing the wife's husband to be your fucking nutritionist, that, doesn't affect his in-cage performances in terms of his skill, but that just shows a mental weakness for me. It shows a mental weakness. It shows that there are some underlying issues with Ian Garry. I can tell just by the way he talks that he's just trying to convince himself that he is what he thinks he is. He's not as confident, I believe, as you may think he is. I think that he's actually more so delusional. He's trying to just convince himself that he can do it. He's tried so hard to do it. He finally lost his undefeated record. And look, I mean, he's training down there at Shoot to Box. He's been moving around gyms, getting different training in everywhere. I know a lot of fighters do that, but, he got kicked out of gyms for a reason. I think he's kind of a smug prick, to be honest. I mean, I don't hate the kid, but I just really don't think he has the character. I don't think he has the dog in him. I think he's kind of a CUCK. I think he allows things to go over his head. I think he allows himself to be defeated at certain points. And he's a fucking vegan. And you can't be a high-level athlete if you're a fucking vegan, because it's just not conducive to being a high-level athlete. And yeah, that's going to make his body weaker. He's been looking paler. He's been looking weaker. He's been looking flabbier. He's been looking stringier ever since he's gotten on that vegan diet. It's going to affect his ability to take a shot. It's going to affect his punching power. It's going to affect his stamina. It's going to affect his ability to muscle people around in the clinch. It's going to be affecting his ability to, really squeeze and get a good squeeze in grappling exchanges. All that gets hindered when you're running off of peas and fucking carrots instead of, based Brazilian food like plantains and steak like Carlos Prates is eating. And yeah, the vegan cuck is going to get fucking knocked out. Carlos Prates, again, I'm putting money on him. I'm picking him to win. I'm on the Carlos Prates hype train until he fights Bilal and or Shavkat or Sean Brady. All three of those guys will beat him. He'll be able to beat everybody else, I think, at 170. Giving Carlos Prates to continue the hype train. He's getting the job done. Underdog pick in the main event by knockout. Give me Carlos Prates. One of my favorite fighters in the game right now. He's getting it done. He's getting it done. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, a comment, subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. Enjoy the card this weekend and have a great rest of your day.